Guys. So this is the part 2 of our lecture, that is lab setup for malware analysis. Well, so in the part 1 we have gone through the choosing of hypervisor. Okay, now this part is about picking your guest operating system. Okay, here we are going to discuss some important points for this picking your guest OS. So do go through this lecture till the end. It's very important for you. The first one is your skill set. So if you are planning to reverse engineer malware, and about the reverse engineer malware, we have gone through a lot of discussion, which interactive discussion I can say, because I have gone through the comment and I found that you guys are really working. Means you guys are really attending my class sincerely, because the answers I have got are no doubt 110% correct. Okay, so I suppose that you already got the term what is reverse engineering in case of malware analysis. Clear? So if you're planning to reverse engineer malware and you only understand x86 assembly, and also suppose you are learning assembly, then it would make sense to run an x86 Windows installation. The majority of malware runs under WOW64. And what is WOW64? Windows way of running 32-bit binaries on 64-bit systems. Basically, in this case, we are going to discuss about the benefits or advantages of running 32-bit system or 64-bit system in case of our malware lab setup. Okay, so you will likely be reverse engineering 32-bit code regardless of what architecture you use. And in some cases, malware will drop a 32-bit or 64-bit payload depending on the architecture. So if you don't know 64-bit assembly and you will want a 32-bit payload, means using a 32-bit x86 operating system. So this is all about our assembly. Is it x86 or not? Okay. So next, that a one x86 or 64 CPU can run 32-bit and 64-bit virtual machine, no doubt. But a x86 CPU can run only a 32-bit virtual machines. I hope you have gone through the VMware installation part. Okay, there you'll find that whether you are going to select the 32-bit and 64-bit, 64-bit. And if you means you want to do so, you can easily do it through the setup portion. And if you find some problems, no doubt you may means ask me. Okay. So x86 CPU can only run a 32-bit virtual machine, no doubt. So if your CPU is x86 and you should pick a 32-bit operating system, this is a good suggestion. Okay, you should not go for 64 one, as your original CPU is what? x86. And older CPUs, especially x86 ones, might not support features required by newer Windows installations. So it would also be best way to stay below Windows 8. So you don't need to think about that, yeah, I need Windows 10 or like that, because our aim is for having a research on the malware, means malware analysis, and to set up the lab for that. So we should not be stick to that. I need Windows 10. I need Windows 64-bit operating system. Although I have only 32-bit one. Okay, so you should not have that ego with you. Okay, so that's it. Then your experience also matters, because most malware will work on every Windows system between XP Service Pack 3 and Windows 10. So if you find you are more familiar with XP, then don't be afraid to use it. Yeah, I know that you guys think that this is an older version, but don't worry about that actually, because you want to have a research on it, you want to analyze it. So pick up this one. No problem with that. Okay. So Windows 10 is very resource intensive and may not be supported by all malware. So for general day-to-day malware analysis, it is recommended to stay away from Windows 10 unless you absolutely need it for some reason. And my recommendation is also the same, that stay away from Windows 10 because it has really a complicated resource intensive structure. Okay, so stay away from it. Okay, pick that means older one. Clear? Then next, your malware. 64-bit operating systems utilize something called DSE, and DSE means driver, signature, enforcement. And it prevents loading of unsigned kernel drivers. If you are analyzing malware which install a kernel driver, then a 32-bit operating system is your best bet because it will not have a problem with malware installing unsigned drivers. Got my point? So that is regarding what? Unsigned kernel drivers. So 64-bit operating system is not recommended. The one reason for this one is also okay because it is preventing loading of some unsigned kernel drivers. That is not with the case of 32-bit operating system. Note down this point. Then setting up your virtual machine. So this is purely practical. You can open your VMware or you can open your VirtualBox. Okay, which one, that one you are using, and you can go through it. RAM, it is recommended that you use the minimum amount suggested by the requirements for your chosen operating system. You can underline this line, minimum amount. Okay, I'm not saying about the more than minimum amount. Use the minimum amount suggested by the requirements for your chosen operating system. Then about the CPUs, the processor's options defines how many cores. Cores means CPU cores the virtual machine can use. One should be fine, but if you have a CPU with more than a single core, okay, nowadays we all have more than one core processors with us. So consider setting the limit higher to speed up the virtual machine. Of course, if you increase the core number, then it will speed up the virtual machine. Okay, so that's on you, of course. Then minimum one will be, of course, the one. Then execution cap should be left at 100% unless you set the processor setting to the same number of cores your CPU has. In which case, consider lowering the limit to avoid VMs freezing your computer. And guys, I hope you know what does it mean by VM freezing your system. You may note this line, you may comment that what does it actually mean. Okay, so that's one. Then network, make sure to select NAT option. What is NAT? Can you tell me? It will allow your virtual machine to connect to the internet but not see devices on your real network or talk to other virtual machines. And that's good from a security standpoint. So always select this one, NAT option. Okay, then the rest of the options can be left as it is. Although it's not required for a simple malware analysis environment, you can harden the VirtualBox to prevent malware detecting it's in a virtual machine by using higher F0x loader. Okay, so then about installing Windows, of course, if you are going to install the Windows, you need what? ISO, and you can easily get one from this link I am giving here. Okay, that is the Microsoft one. And if you have a valid product key, then don't use your product key to activate the Windows. And once installed in a virtual machine, or malware could steal your key. Remember it. Instead, leave the Windows unactivated. Simply don't activate the Windows as you don't need any of the benefits of activating it when the virtual machine's only purpose is to running malware. So you don't need to mount the installer ISO at a CD. Simply navigate to the storage category in options. Click the CD icon which says empty next to it. Then click the second CD icon in the top right and select install Windows. Okay, so about this installing Windows, I will discuss in the next class. Today's class is about, question is about NAT. So you comment what does it mean by NAT. Clear? Bye.